I'm Lee Barrett, and this is MIPJ Online Radio. On a national level, the media spotlight has been shining on the subject of incarceration lately, and we're going to continue that discussion today. The eye-opening statistics reflect a problem that every society desperately needs to pay attention to, as it becomes clear that the current system of locking people up for extended periods, frequently for somebody's profit margin, seems not to be working for anyone. But what happens when people are released? In America alone, over 700,000 people are released back into our communities every year. People who, in a vast majority of cases, initially found themselves incarcerated for the crime of living in bad neighborhoods, being poorly educated, and with a lack of family and social structure that leads them into making bad decisions. What happens to those people after years in prison? What are the effects on mental health after time spent in cell isolation, sometimes up to 23 hours a day? What are we, as a civil society, as well as in government, doing to assist the formerly incarcerated to transition back into those communities and with the essential support they require after long periods of incarceration? How much is not assisting them to the fullest extent with that transition costing us? In future shows, MIPJ Online Radio will be looking into just some of these issues and examining what the system is doing to all of us as a society. Perhaps the first thing we can do is to start looking at those people who have convictions a little differently. In today's show, we speak to some people who are working hard to change the way we see those who have been formerly incarcerated and who are dealing with the stigma and obstacles that come from having a conviction. America incarcerates more citizens than any other country. 2.3 million and counting are currently behind bars. 95% of the people receiving prison sentences will eventually be released at a rate of around 60,000 each day. On release, they frequently lack the basic skills to survive, and it's estimated that of those released, between 60 and 70% will be rearrested within 3 years, mostly for crimes related to theft and burglary. Serious crimes such as homicide and rapes have a much lower rearrest rate of around 1.2 to 2.5%. It's an indication of a problem created by a lack of support services and assistance to those returning home from years inside prison. Although they've served their time, they come home to a life of continued sanctions that extend their punishment beyond the prison walls and reduce their likelihood of successful reintegration. The formerly incarcerated are denied employment, housing, as well as access to public assistance, the most basic needs for anyone to function well. They are denied access to college, even though education is viewed as the most effective way to bring people into the workforce, as it provides essential job skills. They are denied the right to vote, even though civic participation develops a positive role in the community and lessens the chance of rearrest. Former New York Times journalist Sheila Rule founded Think Outside the Cell Foundation to address the stigma facing those making the long journey home. She spoke to MIPJ contributor Katina Andoniadis.
I am the co-founder and executive director of the Think Outside the Cell Foundation, and I came to this work about 11 years ago when I happened to be at Riverside Church on Homecoming Sunday. And that is the Sunday at the end of the summer. It's in September when the minister comes back from his travels and the congregation is back from vacation. And that's the Sunday where all the various clubs and organizations at Riverside put out their leaflets, try to get new members. And I happened to be passing by the prison ministry table, and the woman sitting there looked at me, pointed at me, and said, "You need to get involved." And I said, "Well, okay." And I said to myself, maybe there's something I can do to help. So I started going to the prison ministry meetings, and because at the time I was a journalist, I was a journalist most of my adult life before I retired. So they said, "You're a journalist, so can you write letters?" I said, "Sure." So I started corresponding, and those letters from people who were incarcerated actually had such a powerful impact on me that I said, "There's got to be more that I can do." And therein lies the tale, and here I am today.
So what were you seeing in those letters? What were you learning?
What I saw in those letters was this beauty, potential, skills, talent, hopes, dreams. So I saw their humanity. And what happened was around that time, when I was writing back and forth to people, and we would get letters, and I was writing to lots of people, but there were about 20 people who kept writing. So it was like they were my pen pals. So I had about 20 people I was writing consistently. That's a lot of writing.
Yeah.
And around that time, I got a letter, the prison ministry got a letter from Joseph Robinson. And he asked if there was someone he could write to. Of course, it was me, because I was the letter writer. So we started writing to each other. We were so simpatico, and we eventually got married. So,
so what were you seeing in Joseph's letter? Something stood out.
Joe is such a striver, and he is so hopeful, I would say, and he is also a person who has such integrity, and also we share the same values. We have the same hopes for our community, wanting to give back in ways that are similar, so that we were simpatico. We were really simpatico, and it was lovely. It was just a lovely experience.
So did the Think Outside the Cell Foundation come as a direct result of the two of you together, or were you already thinking this way?
Once I started reading these letters, and this was actually before Joe wrote a letter to the prison ministry, after I was reading these letters, and I was really having such an impact on me, I was thinking, I said, what can I do? I've got to do more than write letters. I've got to do something that really has a greater impact, and to help men and women and young people in this population. So that's when Joe came into my life. And Joe, who has a very clear vision of what needs to be done. He has a very organized mind. He has great ideas. And so Joe said, he said, I've been looking for years for a book on entrepreneurship for people in prison. He said, I can't find them. He said, I'm going to write one myself. So we started a publishing company, and the publishing company grew into the Think Outside the Cell Foundation.
Sheila Rule and Joe Robinson founded Resilience Multimedia, the aim of which is to present a more balanced image of the formerly incarcerated in an effort to dispel the negative images so often portrayed in the media. To further this goal, Think Outside the Cell partnered with 7 Photo Agency to produce the short film The Long Shadow of Incarceration's Stigma. The film focuses on the stories of Ronald Day and Mercedes Smith as they do the work to re-enter society after a long time locked away. The voice of Ronald Day from the film.
People generally judge what they don't know. But when they get to know people, they will ultimately put their guards down, let their guards down, because they'll see that this person, although he made a bad decision, he is probably not the same person that made that decision. I think it's difficult when you know that you're going to be judged for the rest of your life for prior bad decisions that you've made.
7 Photo Agency was founded by 7 photojournalists to document stories of injustice experienced by people throughout the world. Ed Kashi was one of 4 photojournalists who worked on the film.
I've been a photographer for over 30 years, originally from New York City, and lived out in San Francisco for 25 years, and about 8 years ago moved back to the New York area. And I've been, I see myself as a visual storyteller. I have worked on many long-term projects, produced 7 books, have started to shoot video and produce multimedia over the last decade. I generally, my work is focused on either social issues, which tend to be domestic, or geopolitical issues around the world.
Well, this project, the Think Outside the Cell project, how did that come about?
Well, really, Kimberly Sonin, our project development person at 7, connected with Sheila Rule, who is the director of Think Outside the Cell, the executive director, and they were able to team up to come up with this concept of creating a short film. And then, fortunately, I was one of the photographers that Kimberly tapped from 7. There were 4 of us: myself, Ron Haviv, Ashley Gilbertson, and Jessica Dimmock. And Jessica and I probably have the most experience of this group in shooting video and working in multimedia. So we were tasked with shooting video, and then Ron and Ashley were given the task of shooting stills. Now, I was actually blessed with an amazing subject, Ronald Day. I mean, I literally was already missing him on the last day we worked together when I knew that I might not be seeing him for a while. So Ron and I ended up, having this amazing subject, Ronald, who I guess in a way you could say is the, sort of poster child for how to be successful in rebuilding a life after 15 years in prison. Mm-hmm. It's humbling. It's humbling when you get to meet these incredible people who are doing, and I'm not talking about famous people. I'm saying just regular folk who are extraordinary in what they're doing. And the story that they have to tell can be inspiring and, can be a lesson for others. I've done a lot of work in prisons over the years. I'm well aware that, we've imprisoned more people than any other country on earth. It's extraordinary how many people we've locked up in the United States, and that we have a high recidivism rate. Clearly, I feel that we've sort of given up on the idea of rehabilitation, and so that is incredibly disturbing to me as someone who cares about our country, our society, the mental health of our nation, and besides the fact that I'm not excited about creating a breed of people who have no vested interest in maintaining the structure of society. That they're so out of sync and so angry and so disengaged, disaffected that they will hurt people, they'll steal, and they'll do all these terrible things. So what's great to see is a guy like Ronald, where he really is exemplary as someone who did some bad things in his life, paid 15 years in prison is a hell of a long time, and then came out and now is pretty amazing man.
What is the reality of a person when they're coming out of a long time being locked away?
It's really tough. Our film deals specifically with the stigma of incarceration.
In a report done in 2002 by Patricia Allard of the Sentencing Project, the restrictions on welfare for women with children returning to society after incarceration means that well over 135,000 children are put at risk of neglect and future involvement with the criminal justice system. Section 115 of the Welfare Reform Act denies food stamps and cash assistance to those convicted of drug-related crimes, which means a woman can be punished for the rest of her life, making re-entry with or without a child almost impossible. All but 10 states have either opted out of the ban on food stamps or modified the ban to be less punitive. The other subject of the film, Mercedes Smith, is now facing her own obstacles, as housing policies restrict her ability to find an affordable place to live for herself and her family. Many programs either do not take women or don't take women who have children, and without a network of support on release, many women find themselves in homeless shelters or on the street.
I am currently living right now in the Upper West Side, Amsterdam Projects, with my aunt, who is 86 years old. And I stay there with her. I help take care of her. Her son, who was sent to a program, he's in a program now. So when he comes home from the program, I have to find housing because he's on parole. Both of us cannot be on parole together, living in the same household. I cannot come to my mother's house because my case came from this building. I caught my charges of my case